Hello, welcome. Welcome. This is the global community for adults who are healing CPTSD. My name is Athena, and I'll be facilitating our time together this evening. Today is Monday, October 27th, 2025, and I would like to warmly welcome you if this is your first time joining us live. We meet here about once a week on Mondays, 7 p.m. Eastern, and we have weekly open discussion groups on the topic of healing CPTSD. And for the past 19-ish weeks, we have been discussing Pete Walker's most recent book titled Holistically Treating Complex PTSD, a Six-Dimensional Approach. So I'm so glad that you've chosen to be here, and we are doing a little bit of a guided read through, and we're discussing in the chat box what comes up for us as we're going through the book. So that's a little bit of what you're going to experience here on this channel. And for those of you who it's not your first time here, I just want to pause and I want to thank you for your grace and your patience and your kindness. Last week, I was really sick. I was really under the weather. I had no voice whatsoever. I had a fever. I honestly thought I had COVID again because it felt very, very, very similar, but I tested negative. I have 2 clients with COVID right now, so I honestly thought for sure, oh gosh, this is what's going on for me, but it wasn't COVID, and I'm very grateful for that. But nonetheless, thank you for your kindness, thank you for your grace, thank you for your patience as I was unable to be here with you last week, and I am so very grateful to be back here with you today. And I want to check in with Kitty and Karen and several of you who were keeping track of our pages. I have a feeling, if I'm not mistaken, we are either at the bottom of page 362 or we are at the top of page 363. I can't remember if we finished the subsection. So yeah, just wanted to double check. So before we get started, I do want to say a very special thank you to John Harvey and Ninja Taco for just always being here with us week after week, month after month, year after year for over 11 years now. Or I've been here with you for over 11 years, but John Harvey and Ninja Taco have been here much of the time. So I just want to say thank you for keeping our chat box a safe place. And before we get started, I am going to just pause and just check in and say hello to everyone who's here. Hello to you, John Harvey. Hello, Jeffrey Sherman. Hello to you, GFNC. I think I'm meeting you for the very first time. So grateful to have you here with us. Hello, Vinny. Oh my goodness. Hello. Oh, I'm so happy to see you, Vinny. You just made my whole day. Love you, girl. Hello to V Graham 580. I might be meeting you for the very first time. Hello, Candida. Hello, Cat Poet. Hello. Oh, thank you for the cake, John Harvey. So many of you have messaged me wishing me a happy birthday. I will be turning 52 on Friday, and thank you for the birthday messages, and yeah, just so grateful. Hello to you, Karen. Hello. Ash wrote this. I think I'm meeting you for the very first time. So grateful to be here with you all. Lots of new people today. I have a new Wi-Fi situation, and really hoping that it holds out and that everything's good. Please feel free to let me know how the volume is. And I just want to make sure. Hello, Mary. So glad to see you. Hello, Mimosa. Hello, Lisa Marie. My chat box is moving so quickly. Hello, brave Vanessa. Oh, thank you, Vinny. Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, so let me know how the volume. Oh, Candida says volume is good. I'm glad. I just want to make sure the background music isn't overpowering. So, oh no, Jeffrey says, is the stream still on? Is something wrong with my internet? You all have a new Wi-Fi. Thank you, brave Vanessa. Thank you. Okay, well, before we move forward oh, thank you, Karen. Top of page 363, that's where I thought we were. I had a 50-50 chance of getting it right. Thank you, thank you. So before we get started, I know I already said thank you to our moderators, Ninja Taco and John Harvey, but I really, really want to say thank you to each of you who have joined our community away from social media. It is because of you that I am able to continue to show up here every single week, about once a week for over 11 years now, because this YouTube channel is sponsored by the Foundation for Post-Traumatic Healing and Complex Trauma Research, also known as CPTSDfoundation.org. It was a collective effort, and basically sitting on the living room floor, started an organization, and that was back in 2014. First iteration, No More Shame Project, Trauma Recovery University. Here we are, CPTSD Foundation, and it is all made possible by those of you who join our community away from social media. There's a link in the chat box, a link in the description section of this video, and none of it would be possible. We have daily calls twice a day, every day. We have trauma-informed yoga, daily encouraging texts, healing book club, weekly creative group. We offer accessible resources that are complex trauma informed for survivors and practitioners of repeated relational trauma. And there's something going on 365 days a year, and that is made possible by you. So with my hand on my heart, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for believing in the crazy vision and for continuing to be here. It's just seriously, it's pretty surreal on most days that I get to sit with and hold space with amazing humans who are on a healing path. And it's just, yeah, it's unbelievable. Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Vinny. Yes, and I love how you have grown. Your work and your poetry. I remember sitting with you in Tacoma at that oceanside restaurant, and we were just talking about starting up your community. We're like, you better fucking do it. The music was so loud, and I just will never forget that moment. And here you are, and your work is reaching so many people. It's amazing. So this YouTube channel reaches survivors of relational trauma in over 180 countries, and I couldn't be more grateful. So with all of that being said, if anyone is watching the replay and you'd like to put in the chat box, or I'm sorry, in the comment section of the replay, that we are beginning our discussion of Pete Walker's most recent book, Holistically Treating Complex PTSD. six-dimensional approach. If you'd like to put in the comment section that we are starting our open discussion of his work at about 10 minutes into the video, that would be wonderful. I really appreciate you. So here we go. We are at the top of page 363, and we are, I believe it's chapter 11. Let me just double check. I believe it's chapter 11. And it is. So we are in a subsection titled Sub-Cycles of Internal and External Triggering. And Pete says, many survivors are triggered deeper into flashbacks via painful intersections of external and internal triggers. This occurs when they are suddenly triggered by external events that unconsciously remind them of earlier traumas. Typically, this opens the door for the virulent critic to take over. The critic then internally hyperbolizes the triggering event as extremely threatening. It goads survivors into feeling as endangered as they were during their most severe childhood traumas. Any nearby people are then seen as acutely endangering, and the survivor is instantly plunged into the dysregulation of a full-blown flashback. Sadly, the initial outer trigger often has little actual substance to it. It may be a less than desirable response from another person or a less than approving facial expression. It may also be an unverifiable posture of perceived indifference. The critic is not particular. It can use any glance of being noticed or not noticed to pump up the survivor's fear and shame. And in a second, the survivor's composure dissolves and they descend into the abandonment melange. Alternately, the virulent critic often creates another destructive cycle, vacillating between the inner and outer critic. This occurs when the critic oscillates between internally demeaning the survivor and externally blaming the triggering person. Now, depending on their 4F type, survivors can either lean more towards self-pathologizing or outright confrontation of others. And when the survivor is a fight type, they can become combative toward others, whether or not they have actually been dissed. Please see Chapter 10 of Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving for much more on the outer critic. Top of page 364. Actually, let me just pause really quick. I want to make sure he was referencing Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving, or if he was referencing Chapter 10, Complex PTSD in this book. No, it was. So, yes, Pete says for more on the toggling back and forth between inner critic and outer critic, which we've talked about a lot on this channel. Pete says that if we want to go deeper on that toggling back and forth, to please see Chapter 10 of Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving for much more on the outer critic. Because, as many of you know, what was just described on page 363 is oftentimes a feedback loop. I know it is for me. Example, perfect example. Now let's just go back to where we were just a moment ago on page 363, and let's look at the toggling back and forth between the internal critic and the external critic, the inner critic and the outer critic, okay? So Pete says that we're suddenly triggered by external events like a person, place, or thing, right? And then the critic internally, hyperbolically, like just amplifies and turns it up to 12, the triggering event from this external person, place, or thing, and tells our nervous system that it is extremely threatening, right? And then what the inner critic does is it goads us into feeling as though we are as endangered as we were during our most severe childhood traumas. And so the nearby people, places, and things that initially triggered us are seen as acutely endangering, and then we are instantly plunged into massive dysregulation and a full-blown flashback. And when we're in that full-blown flashback, what the end result is the abandonment melange, which you can learn more about if you go backwards on the channel 2 to 3 videos. We talk a lot about the abandonment melange. So many of you know I've spoken here very, very vulnerably about my relationship with my son and my daughter-in-law. My son is going to be 33 years old and my daughter-in-law is 34. Or he's going to be 33 and she's going to be 34, or she just turned 34. I can't remember. I think they're about a year apart. So many of you know that when I have the opportunity to be in person and relate with them and spend time with them and share the same room with them and just have interactions with them, until most recently, like probably until about 2022, so just the past 3 years, like for 22, 23, 24, 25, so the past like 4 years, this past 4 years has been deep, 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 deep work for me, because what I have realized is what Pete just said. I'm triggered by something, like he mentions here that it could be a glance of disapproval, or it could be, how did he say it? It could just be something, it could be something so, it could be a less than desirable response, middle of page 363, or a less than approving facial expression, and it might also be an unverifiable posture of perceived indifference. Okay? Many of you know, like I've shared here, this is what every single interaction was like with my son and my daughter-in-law for, well, from about 2011 all the way up till about 2021. So for a good solid 10 years, I would be flung into flashbacks and I couldn't figure out why. Like, I didn't realize I was in a flashback. I was completely and totally convinced that these two people that I love so, 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 so much were just bent on making sure that I felt unloved and unlovable. And I couldn't figure out why. It was just beyond me. And by the time I realized that I was in an emotional flashback, all of a sudden, I'm like, I had already shown up in ways that I'm not proud of. I had already behaved and spoken to them in ways that are less than ideal. I'm showing up in ways that I'm just not proud of whatsoever. And it's something so tiny as just a perceived indifference or a glance. I mean, who knows? Like, maybe they had a stomachache. Maybe they were tired. Maybe they ate a bad piece of fish. But for me, and for me, it was just like this deep, 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 deep wound, right? Deep wound. And it felt like they were trying to harm me on purpose. And that phrase, as many of you know, harm me on purpose, is something that has been a common thread throughout my life. There is a younger part of me that knew that my family of origin was harming me on purpose. Like, she knew. She wasn't allowed to say it out loud, but she knew. And so I now understand, after doing a lot of extra deep work over the past 4 years that nearly every single time I feel completely convinced that anyone is harming me on purpose, I am in a flashback. I am in an emotional flashback in that moment. Because why would I surround myself with people that are going to harm me on purpose? Oh, I know the answer to that. I wouldn't. I have a beautiful life. I'm surrounded by people who love me and like me. And there's absolutely no reason for me to choose to spend time with people who are going to harm me on purpose. So, if you go to pete-walker.com and you look to the left-hand side of the website and it says Manage Emotional Flashbacks or Flashback Management, one of the very first things that you will read at the very top of the page is gently remind yourself, I am in a flashback. And then the rest of the 12 steps after that first one, it gets easier and easier and more clear. And I don't want to say easy, but it gets clearer and clearer and clearer that we are in fact in a flashback. Now, if you're like me, you have another part of you that believes that doing flashback management and just saying, oh, I must be in a flashback, that part of me believes that I am minimizing and invalidating my lived experience, and I am giving every single person a hall pass every single time they are harmful toward me and they have been unkind or they have caused me harm in some way. And so when I believe that someone is harming me on purpose, and then I do what Pete tells me to do by reminding myself that I'm in a flashback, there is a second part of me that is like, oh, yeah, sure, give them a hall pass, just like you did your mother, just like you did your father, just like you did your grandmother, just like you did the husband, just like you did the sister-in-law. Yeah, just like you did all those other people that were harmful toward you and invalidating and minimizing and unkind and less than compassionate and lacking in empathy and failing to acknowledge you, invalidating you at every turn, lacking empathy, lacking empathy, lacking empathy. Here you are doing the same thing as you did with them. Oh, I'm just in a flashback. So the tricky part about this is I've been sitting under the teaching of this gentleman named Marshall Bircher. He has a website called freetheself.com. Highly recommend. If you like Pete Walker's work or Peter Levine's work or Bessel's work or Stephen Porges's work, you will absolutely love Marshall Bircher's work. If you like Dr. Doyle Says, you will love Marshall Bircher. If you enjoy Patrick Teahan's work, you will love Marshall Bircher's work. I'm telling you right now, when I access that part of me that believes that someone is harming me on purpose, and then I try to do my flashback management, and there's a part of me that believes that I'm invalidating myself and giving people a hall pass for harming me by just saying, oh, must be a flashback, and like as though I'm just being pathologizing and invalidating my own lived experience. Instead, what I then do, and this is all something I've been doing, I've just been mapping my complex trauma. What ends up working, rather than triggering that secondary part that believes that we are invalidating ourselves, what we do is we pause, we acknowledge what's going on for us. Wow, it looks like we might be in a flashback. Then we observe the flashback. We observe the part that feels invalidated by saying that we're in a flashback. And then we legitimize. Marshall has two tools, PAO and ALI, pause, acknowledge, observe, and acknowledge, legitimize, integrate. So I start with PAO, I start with pause, acknowledge, observe, and then I move to ALI. I acknowledge that I have a part of me that feels very, very invalidated by the 13-step flashback management tool that I'm using from Pete Walker. And I gently acknowledge, slowly, of course you're feeling triggered. Of course you're feeling invalidated right now. Of course it feels like you're giving these people a hall pass. How could it not? Look at all you've been through. Look at every single time in your life that someone has harmed you on purpose. And when you bring these things to their attention, rarely, if ever, have they taken responsibility for the rupture in the trust bond and then been present for the repair. Of course, doing flashback management is hard for you. How could it not be? Let's just sit with that. It's valid that you're feeling this way. Nobody deserves a hall pass for being unkind and dismissive and indifferent and cold and lacking warmth and lacking empathy and failing to acknowledge and being unempathic or just less than loving. No one deserves to be in relationship with you for years and years and years and decades when you show up and you give 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 some more. This relationship where you're feeling triggered is lacking in reciprocity. Of course you feel invalidated. The moment I shift from the pause, acknowledge, observe to the acknowledge, legitimize, integrate, and I sit in the L of legitimize for as long as I need to until I feel a physiological shift. The moment that happens, all of the sudden, I'm able to move forward. And I've moved through it, and I've integrated it, and I'm no longer looking to completely blow up whatever relationship is in front of me due to their perceived indifference or lack of warmth or failure to acknowledge or their momentary lack of empathy or the lack of reciprocity in the relationship. But the key here, for me, it might be different for you, but the key is to sit in that L, in the legitimize portion of it, for as long as is necessary for you personally to experience a physiological shift. You will literally feel your body shift to a place where you feel like you can get a deep breath or a yawn. Just thinking about it. Just thinking about how valid my pain is and how seen and known I feel by me. That I've shown up for myself in ways that they were unable to. And I'm just using my son and my daughter-in-law as an example because I've shared so vulnerably here so many times while I was staying there with them, taking care of my grandson right after he was born, or when I visit for the holidays and all of that. It's the closest relationship to me that causes this type of response, right? So that's why I'm using them as an example. But I show up for me in the ways that they were incapable of. And that, meeting myself in that place, that is the presence and the warmth and the acknowledgement and the validation and the compassion and the advocacy and the presence. That is what I've always needed my entire life. I needed it from my mother. I didn't get it. I needed it from my father. I didn't get it. I needed it from my grandmother. I didn't get it. Not one adult was consistent and reliable and safe. There was no consistency in warmth, acceptance, love, belonging, safety, food, shelter, clothing, delight. There was no consistent and reliable adult. And when I slow down and I sit with the invalidation that I feel because I've given someone a hall pass for their perceived indifference or their lack of acknowledgement or lack of empathy or lack of validation or the lack of reciprocity in the relationship, I have somehow in my body experienced a reparative and restorative moment that has created a new neurological pathway that we can then build upon and strengthen. And that flows out not only into the relationship that I have with myself, but into the relationship that I have with my son and my daughter-in-law. I show up differently for them. I'm no longer seeking to get an unmet childhood need met in present day adult relationship with me, 51, them in their 30s, and all of us trying to manage life and pain and grief and struggles and just dealing with things that no one knows about. I have somehow had a reparative and restorative relational experience, first with myself and then with them, because I show up differently for me, which then enables me to show up differently for them. Because after all, I'm the parent. I'm the source of support. I'm the safe place. I'm the one they can come to. I'm the one with the patience and the willingness to hold space and to offer warmth, acknowledgement, validation, empathy, compassion, advocacy, strength, support, resources, gentleness, care, love, acceptance, belonging. All because I was triggered into a flashback, tried to do the 13-step flashback management, got further triggered into invalidation, toggling back and forth between the inner critic and outer critic, like Pete talks about in Chapter 10 of Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving, and on page 363 of his most recent book, Holistically Treating Complex PTSD, a Six-Dimensional Approach. The world changes when we slow down and we acknowledge our own lived experience. We legitimize what it is that we're actually experiencing, not what someone else is experiencing, not what they think we're experiencing, but what we are actually experiencing. And the game changes. We show up differently for ourselves and we show up differently for others in ways that work for everyone involved. So I'm going to step down off of my soapbox and I'm going to go back to the text, top of page 364. And I want to thank you for bearing with me as I shared for a good 20 minutes. But that was in real time application of what it is that we read on page 363. Okay? So I'm hoping that that was helpful for you because this is my process. This is how I'm mapping my CPTSD. This is how I'm slowing down. This is how I'm having reparative and restorative relational experiences with myself and with others. This is how I'm experiencing safety, a sense of belongingness. And this is how, for the first time in my life, I have a real sense of self-worth. And being here with you every week is a huge part of that. And being in our community every single day is a huge part of that. So thank you for being on this journey with me. We're going to go back to the top of page 364. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh, the chat box just scrolled up really, 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 really fast. My chat box is frozen. Hello, Ash wrote this. Ash wrote this, says, I don't think people understand that even having to take time to intentionally do these things and slow down takes time. It can be draining. We can no longer just WLK. Like, we can no longer just walk. Is it walk? Yeah, I really want to underscore what Ash has said here. A lot of times, normies, the people out there who are not healing from repeated relational trauma, I do think they have a deep lack of understanding. That for those of us who are healing repeated relational trauma that began in childhood specifically, it does take time. And when I was working in restaurants, when I was raising my son, in the kitchens of the restaurants I was working in, they would have this thing called on the fly, meaning someone would run back in the kitchen and say, Table 24's burger isn't prepared properly. I need a burger well done on the fly, meaning drop what you're doing and get me a burger well done on the fly, like right now. On the fly means like right this moment, right? So I really think that a lot of people who are not healing repeated relational trauma, they lack the understanding, like what Ash is saying here. They lack the understanding and the grace and the patience to offer a sense of warmth or acknowledgement or kindness or validation or space for us to take our time and slow down. Because if we are experiencing what Pete says on page 363, the toggling back and forth of the internal and external trigger and the inner and outer critic that leads us to the abandonment melange, which happens via an emotional flashback, which then blows up and incinerates whatever relationship is in front of us. If they don't have a felt sense of what that looks like, and if they don't understand that if we move at the same pace that they're moving at, that is what the end result is always going to be. We're going to mow down every person, place, or thing in front of us. The relationships are going to just be incinerated. They're not going to have the time and attention they deserve. the intentionality that Ash mentions here is super key, because this type of healing that we're discussing does not happen on accident. It takes time, effort, patience, consistency, and a lot of rest, hydration, proper nutrients, hygiene, balance, care. And a lot of people, they're just from the school of, ain't nobody got time for that. And guess what? And this is a little harsh. This might not land for you and it might feel a little ouchy, but those people that are from the school of, ain't nobody got time for that. Guess what? Those might not be your people. Those might not be your people. I'm realizing those are not my people. You want to know who my people are? You all are my people. Jeffrey Sherman's my people. Mary's my people. Kira, hey girl. Kira's my people. Kitty's my people. John Harvey's my people. Ninja Taco's my people and my recovery buddy. Right? Like, you all are my people. Who did I miss? Hello, lovely Ella. Hello, Susan. Hello to all these people with all these new names. The names are different. Hello, Jen. You all are my people. Those people that ain't nobody got time for that, like people, those are not my people. My people show up somehow at cptsdfoundation.org, and they somehow find us by Googling something at 3 a.m, and they join a program, and then I end up facilitating and holding space for them and facilitating a container where they're able to show up and feel seen, heard, valued, and understood, walking away with a felt sense of empathy. They have experienced a felt sense of empathy, and they do that over and over and over and over and over again. And those people, to this day, several years later, some of them 9 years later, those are my people. They're my family. They're who I talk to every day. I do life with them. I spend more time with our community members than I do my birth family. Oh, have a good night, Miss Kira. I'm so happy I got to see you. Thank you for the birthday wishes. Oh my goodness. So good to see you, Kira. I'm sending you so much love. Thank you for popping by. I always enjoy seeing you. But yeah, you're going to find your people here on Mondays. So many of us here have been interacting with one another about once a week, sometimes more, for over 11 years. That's wild, right? So I really mean it this time. Top of page 364, Pete says, if survivors are fawn types, they can launch into ingratiating the other or completely withdraw into self-contempt. And if they are a fight fawn or a fawn fight type, they can vacillate between those two positions. This subcycle is commonly initiated by extremely subtle external triggers. In many instances, the triggering person subliminally reminds the survivor of a past abuser, even when the resemblance is almost negligible. Often it is as remote as all men or all women triggering and reminding them of their traumatizing fathers or mothers. And of course, when the resemblance is striking, the intensity of the triggering can soar. Here is another common external trigger. When survivors do something in public for which they are demeaned in childhood, they can be immediately triggered into intense performance anxiety. This is usually an anxiety born out of being negatively noticed continually in childhood. Now, in the present, the anxiety of feeling negatively noticed mostly comes from the inner critic triggering dire predictions of failure and humiliation. And for many untreated survivors, being observed doing anything feels rife with danger and embarrassment. This can be everyday undertakings such as walking, cleaning, preparing food, socializing, attempting a new task for the first time, or interfacing with a computer. Tragically, there does not even need to be an observer for their performance anxiety to erupt. Just as challenging are chance interactions with strangers, which often feel especially threatening. Social anxiety is a key symptom of CPTSD. At its worst, it devolves into social phobia, which can easily trigger survivors into panic attack mode. This can goad especially traumatized survivors to retreat into extreme isolation as much as possible. Once again, all this stems from being raised on negative noticing. Now, in childhood, there was no one who was safe, kind, or supportive. Consequently, survivors' social skills are often underdeveloped because the critic makes others look as scary as their early caretakers. In emulation of the survivors' caretakers, the critic then adds salt to the wound by blame shaming them for feeling upset and untrusting. Little wonder that unexpected interactions with others are especially triggering. We're at the top of page 365. Most survivors are deeply conditioned to unconsciously believe that all people are dangerous. Most survivors also have checkered histories of disapproving responses from the outer world for their less than perfect performances. These can be imagined as often as they are real. Sadly, this dynamic can also plague survivors in private when no live person is observing them other than the judgmental inner critic or committee. Another subcycle is in internal-external triggering is seen in the no exit whirlpool that fawn fight types are prone to spiral down into. Now, these types easily get lost in inner critic, outer critic jousting about relationship problems. Ding, 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 ding. Typically, such survivors ping pong in their psyches between over-blaming themselves for these struggles and then over-blaming the other. To the degree that the fawn fight type polarizes to a fawn response, to that same degree do they get stranded in self-blame. My client, Tina, this is Pete Walker speaking, had parents who conditioned her to severely over-rely on her fawn response. Early on, I discovered that she was a powerful magnet for exploiting narcissists. She came to therapy because she could not stop fighting back against her current malignant narcissistic boyfriend. Even though it took long periods of his abuse to activate her instinct of self-protectiveness. She stayed with him for 3 years because her inner critic viciously insisted that she was to blame for his rageaholic behavior. She could not resist her critic's toxic mantra, "Why can't I just be more loving and accepting and not make him so angry?" Fortunately, Tina never lost all connection with the self-protective side of her fight response. She would repeatedly take the blame, but could never go more than a month or 3 without her own fight response erupting, just like his did. Now, unlike him, her outbursts were only momentary, and soon fizzled out via the quickly revived badgering of her damning inner critic. Top of page 366. She, Tina, recurringly implored me to help her not react, but instead I patiently and gently psychoeducated her about shame being healthy blame turned against the self. I did this in the context of teaching her that anger was a key part of her emotional intelligence. Over time, I taught her to turn her anger against the critic and its installers for brainwashing her to blame herself for others' anger. Eventually, via a great deal of angering at her inner critic committee, she saw the great injustice of being forced to repress her instinct of just and honorable self-protectiveness. She gradually became enthusiastic about turning her anger toward her critic and her introjected parents, who modeled to her that she should blame herself for her boyfriend's habitual raging. After much practice, her instinct of self-protection revived healthily and mightily. She left the abusive boyfriend, broke her repetition compulsion for narcissists, and eventually found a truly safe and intimate partner. Finally, therapists can enlighten survivors about such subcycles when they are caught up in them. Survivors can learn to deactivate flashbacks caused by external triggers before the inner critic turns them into 5-alarm fires. Such awareness culminates when clients discover that the inner critic alone initiates most flashbacks, even without the aid of external triggers. Once again, the potential silver lining here is strengthening survivors' motivation to aggressively fight off and shrink the critic. The vignette in Chapter 4, as well as the angering sections in Chapter 8, provide detailed guidance for this deeply transforming anger work with clients. And that ends our read for tonight at the bottom of page 366. So for those of you keeping track, next week we will begin the subsection titled Subcycles of Perfectionism and Endangerment Triggering. And that is at the top of page 367. So again, we're going to be toggling back and forth between perfectionism and endangerment. And this is probably going to land for many of you if you're like me and you experienced some form of abusive adult relationship as a result of being conditioned to tolerate intolerable behavior in childhood. So I went ahead and I read ahead just to prepare. And so I thought that we would be reading that tonight, and that last week we would do what we just already did. But I was super sick last week, like I mentioned. So next week we're doing perfectionism and endangerment. So I hope you all are enjoying this as much as I am. It really is good to do a deep dive into some Pete Walker work as often as you can tolerate it in your nervous system. I definitely recommend going slowly because it can feel kind of triggery and ouchy, especially if you are not familiar with Pete's work. Like, I think one of the only reasons I'm able to read Pete straight through is because he's part of my fantasy family. Like, he's my fantasy uncle. Like, you know how people have like fantasy football and fantasy sports? I have a fantasy family, and I spend time with them. And I feel like I've gotten an opportunity to spend time with Pete for the better part of 9 years, probably almost 10 years. And when you get to spend time with someone for the better part of a decade, you get to know their character, and you see through the words, and you feel the empathy and the lived experience. And so I definitely recommend going slowly, and it really is helpful if you allow yourself to just go at your pace and revisit these videos, re-listen to them if they're helpful for you. And when Pete talks about the healing of the symptoms of complex PTSD, and how the very, very, very bare bones basics of that is finding a way to hold in one hand self-compassion, and then we hold in the other hand self-protection, and we toggle back and forth between those. We balance both of those similarly to how we toggle back and forth between inner outer critic, or perfectionism, endangerment, or external trigger, internal trigger. So what we end up doing is we end up embodying the essence of radical, consistent, reliable self-compassion, and radical, consistent, reliable self-protection. And that creates pockets of safety where we are able to experience a felt sense of belonging more often, and that brings a felt sense of self-worth. So I really hope this has been helpful and supportive for your unique healing journey. And I hope next week that whatever is going on with all of the names in our live stream, I hope it goes back, because I don't recognize everyone the way that I typically recognize you all, and it feels like I'm in a different room or something, and I would love to be able to see your names as I typically see them, so that you know that I see you. You know? So yeah, I'm really, really, really grateful. Oh, thank you so much. Hello to you, Acquisition 1913. I'm not sure who you are, because the usernames are so different here tonight, but thank you very much. This has definitely been one of my most favorite psychoeducational series. Just psych ed in general, I think, is one of my favorite parts of trauma recovery. One of my favorite parts of healing, because it really leans into like one of my most adaptive coping strategies, which is like I tend to intellectualize everything. So, you know. So, oh, thank you, Turbine. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you. And again, thank you to each and every one of you for your presence here this week. And oh, Vinny, I love you, girl. I miss you. I want to come see you soon, like in 2026, soon, like very soon, you know. I want to revisit all of the places that we visited last time we were there. Yeah, like Ruston, Defiance, all the places. I want to go back, and I want to hang out and pet Miss Zen, and just laugh and take silly pictures, and yeah, I would love that so much. Thank you all for the birthday wishes. I'm turning 52 on Friday. Oh, I'm really, really excited. I feel like aging is such a gift and a privilege. Not everybody gets to do it. Hello, Nadine. Oh, so good to see you. Glad you're here. Yes, 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 Vinny. We need to retake all of the silly pictures that we took and like like timestamp them. Like this was 2000, what was it? Was it 2017? 18? I wonder when that was. I'm trying to remember. And then like take those pictures again and like stamp them 2026. Oh, thank you, Ash. I appreciate the birthday wishes. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Shanty Love. Thank you very much. Thank you to each of you. Thank you, Candida. Thank you to John Harvey and Ninja Taco and for keeping our chat stream safe. And I hope that if I do get a chance to see you in our community, there's a link. Then I would really look forward to that. And if I don't, that's okay. I'll be back here next Monday and every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And in the meantime, I hope you will be extra kind and patient and gentle with yourself because you're worth it, as Jeffrey Sherman would say. And yeah, I just love you all so much. Thank you for being in my life. And thank you for allowing me to be in yours. And I'll see you soon. Good night, everyone.